Sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast on topics of interest to the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community. And topic of interest today is the Rapid Sustainment Office in your Rapid Austere focus area. So if you could, sir, just give us a little introduction, introduce yourself to the audience, and give us a little background on your career.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Julio Cesar Vega Flores. I just go by Cesar. And just a little bit about me. I've been with the Rapid Sustainment Office a little bit, almost around 18 months or so. And I actually work in the I2 team, which is an innovation integration team. And really our goal in our innovation integration team is to, help some of these projects that we have along and, to transition to, to hopefully something scalable, in the future within the RSO. But also in that same way, I'm also, I focus on the Rapid Austere focus area, right, within the RSO as well. Before that, I worked in foreign military sales with the F-15 QA program. Had the wonderful time of being there for about 18 months as well, being a palace acquire, and trainees at this time. And then before that, sir, I had the pleasure of serving in the United States Marine Corps for 14 years. Doing different jobs, but the biggest one I think that really stands out, I would say, is the working as an avionics technician, working on platforms such as the Harriers, the F-18s, and the B-22 Ospreys.
Wow, that's great. So from the Marine Corps to the Air Force.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Well, hey, great to have you on the team. So tell us a little bit about your team. How big is the team that you work on now?
Yeah, so the team, so the innovation integration team, right? So we comprised of, about, five people, 5 people as far as program managers, but we do have our contracting team. But really, as far as a Rapid Austere, we don't have a team established yet. Again, it's like, we're still very young in developing. So right now, if I was to say we had a team, it's just me.
Okay, all right, yeah. Great. So sir, if you could tell us, explain to us, give us the kind of top level view. What is the RSO's Rapid Austere focus area? What does that mean?
Yes, sir, no problem. So yeah, so the Rapid Austere, it focuses on rapidly deployable mobile maintenance facilities to accommodate, additive manufacturing, cold spray, and austere locations, right? So, really the RSO, is constantly, or continually developing capabilities and providing airmen with, emerging technologies that support, rapid runway inspections, base security perimeters, search and rescue operations, flight line communications networks that can operate anywhere, and ultra high definition for robotics and unmanned air vehicles. So overall, it's, we touch everything, but the really focus is really those mobile maintenance facilities, right, to be able to support, that sustainment enterprise, and when our airmen are deployed overseas.
Mm-hmm. So this is talking about going into like bear base operations. Is that right?
That is correct, sir. So and a little sort of a thing, right? So if you remember, let's go back to when we got involved into September 11th happened. Right. And of course, we went into Iraq and of course, we already had established, air bases overseas, but, going into Iraq and establishing these forward operating bases, it took a little bit of work. And once we established that infrastructure, it was very easy. Well, I'll never say easy, but, we were able to deploy, airmen, Marines, sailors, into these forward operating bases that already had established airfields. Now that, that the conflict, has ended, it's sort of, the Air Force is going back to like, okay, now we need to be not so dependent on established airfields, and we need to focus as like, hey, if we need to deploy into austere locations, can we support those operations from those locations where the logistical footprint will be very small.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking that your primary focus is like sustainment of aircraft and maintenance and things, although you go into other areas as well.
That is correct, sir. And when you think about, when I know that I mentioned, base perimeter, right, and base perimeter, we do have a company that uses drones, for example, right? But yeah, you can use these drones for for perimeter security, but can you also utilize, a drone system to perhaps, do some sort of aircraft inspections? So we're always, not only utilizing it for, what you would just say, hey, use the drone system for this, but can we use the drone system for something else to support that sustainment enterprise?
Right. Okay. So what are the benefits overall that you see from the rapid austere technology?
Yeah, definitely, sir. So one of the benefits, right, is again, being able to give the airmen the tools, right, to be able to operate from these austere locations, right. One of the things, as far as me being myself a maintainer, on the ground, is that having those tools readily available have always kept the aircraft flying. But I've also learned that not having those tools, you sometimes you lose that aircraft, right? That aircraft has to go back to the States or somewhere else, and that's one aircraft short that supports those troops on the ground. So the biggest thing about it is, one of the benefits is providing those airmen the tools. The second is really is reducing that logistical footprint, right? We're so dependent as far as our airlift. When we talk about our workhorse, our C-17, they're flying all over the place, taking fuel, right? But is there a way that that we can help our airmen, not only to make it easier for for them to execute their job, but to reduce our logistical footprint where they're not so dependent on, let's say, fuels for generators? Can we provide them with solar technology that they can operate, right, in those austere locations without being dependent on fossil fuels?
Mm-hmm. Right. So that would save the pipeline of supplies coming back into the forward areas then.
Yes, sir. It definitely would.
Okay. All right. So looking forward now at other Air Force and DoD organizations, I mean, what are the benefits for those organizations looking in? And we draw your experience in the Marine Corps as well, where aircraft maintenance in the Marine Corps is pretty much the same kind of aircraft maintenance in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, sir. It's when you think about it, it's when you think across, right? So we have to follow certain policies. We have to follow our publications. There's certain rules that in order to maintain these aircraft, right? But when you think about the Air Force, right? I mean, it's no secret, right, that overseas threats hold overseas bases, like pretty much at risk. And in order, and the Air Force has to adapt, right? And it must evolve from being so dependable, from those well-established bases, right? So there's this concept called, ACE, or Agile Combat Employment, right? And what it is, ACE is an operational concept that leverages networks of well-established bases and austere bases, and also like having capable airmen, pre-positioned equipment, airlift to rapidly deploy, disperse, and maneuver combat capability throughout the theater, right? So one of the things that, as far as embracing the whole rapid and austere, right, is the interdependency of not being so dependent on those established air bases, right? How can we operate? How can we deploy, into a austere location, and let's say support a handful of F-35s to refuel them, to do some quick maintenance, and after that, maybe for a 2-week period, and then after that, we just take off and we go somewhere else. So that's really the benefit, as far as really embracing. As far I always encourage other DoD units, right, to say, hey, let's look at this this whole ACE concept, and how can we apply this in order to help us better support that sustainment enterprise.
All right. And what progress or success have you guys seen so far?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that question, right? Because when you think about success, right, we always think about scalability. How many things have we deployed, right? And right now, again, when we talk about the RSO, and scaling technology, right, it takes a lot of work. But from the amount of time when we awarded some of these contracts to now, we've gained some great traction. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We a company who focuses on solar technology, right? And developing a standalone self-powering shelter system that uses solar fabric technology to cool, heat, and power a deployable tent. So you can imagine. So when we took that concept, this particular company was able to create an augmented power solution to actually work with current Air Force generators, where it was deployed into an actual operation. And then it did so well during this operation that the Air Force airmen had to call off the fuel trucks because this particular solar augmented solution was able to provide solar power for 5 days without usage of the generator. So that, that's right. So great. I mean, great example. I love that one. We also had an unmanned air vehicle. It was a surveying vehicle that was able to, just provide the commander with aerial view, right? And when you think about it, okay, does that really fall into the whole sustainment enterprise? But the big thing is that we wanted to apply and use this unmanned air vehicles for runway inspections. When you think about FOD inspections, right? You have airmen out in the flight line, walking around. I was like, can we expedite it? Can we make that process a little better by deploying a drone out there or an unmanned air vehicle? So that was another exciting project. Another one too, another thing that in the Air Force is providing that connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity out in the flight line. Being able for the airmen, most of the airmen that are out there, it's not always maintaining the aircraft, right? But it's always coming back and doing all that paperwork in order for them to finally, call it a day. So the aircraft, maintaining the aircraft is one, but also doing the paperwork. So how can we bridge that gap? How can we make it faster? And we did have a company that used a mesh radar network in order to provide connectivity out in the flight line, which allowed the airmen to use some of the tools. So as they're doing the work, they're able to fill out those forms in order to expedite that process as far as of fixing the aircraft. And then lastly, we talk about another company who is developing focuses on building structures to protect aircraft from hurricanes. Right. OK, so how can we take that technology? Right. And when I say a structure, I'm not talking about a structure that is going to take months to build. You're talking about 3 to 5 days that can withstand hurricanes. But how can you help all that, that structure in order to make it, into a main structure to support our 5th generation aircraft? So, we have a lot of different projects in here, in RSO, which just really have yielded some great results so far.
Yeah, those are all sound really, really fascinating. And I mean, you can see a lot of benefits to them, using a drone for FOD checks. I mean, that would have never occurred to me, but it's a great idea. I mean, if you think about it, because the amount of manpower, like you mentioned, that we used to use on doing FOD walks, is kind of insane, really. When a drone could do it probably much more effectively than people could. So same thing with the tent. Those are all. But I want to ask you a little bit more about this structure that you talked about. So the hurricane-proof structure. So would that be like large enough to house an aircraft, like a hangar kind of situation, or?
Yeah, yes, sir. So that's actually the idea behind it, right? They come in different sizes, right? You can house it, just one aircraft, or make it as big to where it can house multiple aircrafts. And the thing, again, going back to it too, is like, okay, but how can we help this particular small business evolve, right? Is it just building just a sort of a structure that protects them, or can you utilize this hangar to again to put a 5th generation aircraft in there and do some low observable maintenance on it? So we always like to take these small businesses, right, and help them evolve into so they can provide the Air Force and the airmen with the equipment that they'll need.
Yeah, well, those are some great success stories. So you mentioned working with small businesses. What kind of industry collaboration are you doing, and where do you see the benefits of that?
Oh, yes, sir. That's a great question. So yeah, so collaborate. So one of the things I've learned about where in my short time in the RSO is that there is not one solution that'll solve the whole sustainment and supporting the aircraft, right? And working with academia and industry has really opened our eyes as far as how we view certain solutions, right? You know what they say, if you never want to fall in love with with one plan, with and currently, even though we have some great solutions going on and we're evolving these solutions, just working with industry, has opened our eyes to see, like, oh man, I was like, well, okay, we got this going on here, but there's also another solution right out here. So then what we do as the RSO is like, is there a way to marry both of these, or build a relationship with these two companies, right? That we're currently working with and that we would like to work with, and create this partnership where they can come up with a better solution, right, or add on to that solution in order to provide that final product. So that's been a great benefit, being able to just partner up with it. We see a lot of potential for collaboration.
Yeah, and your approach, the problem solution kind of approach, is rather than looking for one giant solution to everything, is tailor-made to working with small businesses where is the birthplace of new ideas, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, all right. So what kind of feedback have you gotten so far from Air Force users?
Yeah, so no, thank you, sir. So yeah, so Air Force users, I mean, and you got to love them. They gave us great feedback, right? And I know that, like I've mentioned earlier, that one of our companies that provides the wireless mesh network, right? And when you think about connectivity, right, and on the flight line, the way they saw this tool is that we're like, okay, it's just Wi-Fi. They have access to their tools, but what we got from this particular installation, they're like, this is a gateway to allowing us to use better tools out on the flight line. And I know that you've had the pleasure of meeting Mrs. Taylor Ruffin, and when you think about AR/VR, right? And we're not just going into a room, in a hangar. Now we're talking about that augmented reality out in the flight line, and how we're going to provide that access out in the flight line. You need that network connectivity. So the big thing, the wonderful thing about that mesh radio network that's been deployed is the fact that allows, hopefully in the future, those airmen to have, that connectivity out there that'll allow them access to different tools. When you think about, as far as reducing the logistical footprint, and we talked about, solar fabric and creating the augmented power solution. When that system was deployed on an operation, it was able to, again, it yielded great results, to a point where not only and I forgot to mention this, it took exactly from unboxing to putting together 20 minutes to hook up and to have power going. And the fact that it is able to run, in parallel with, current, Air Force generators, but at the same time run as a standalone system, and then provide, solar technology for 5 straight days without fuel usage. They provide us with great numbers, and they had 50% as far as they say 50% as far as in cost and fuel costs. So that's definitely a great user feedback. And mind you, this is less than a year of from development all the way to delivering a prototype. So definitely pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't even think about the cost savings, but just the cost savings of all the fuel that you're not using, by capturing free energy from the sun.
Yes, sir.
So what's the future look like, do you think, as far as rapid and austere environment? What are the kinds of things that come along that excite you?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sir. So yeah, that's another great question too. So I think, right, is one of the big things, right, is getting away from military construction, right? When you think about military construction, I think DoD wide, we spend a lot of money, right? Especially renovating buildings, making them fit to whatever mission, and we could talk about, especially those corrosion control facilities. We're constantly using these old buildings and renovating them over and over again, right? Which costs a lot of money, but what, right? And again, kind of going back to the rapid austere, rapid austere, structures and mobile maintenance facilities doesn't necessarily need to apply to overseas. What if we were to apply these hardened structures that could be put up, in less than a week? You put them up, they can support, whatever mission you may have at a state's installation, and you put them up. Not only are you also saving, you're saving money, but also these structures are being put up quickly, and at the same time you're able to to support that aircraft. So when we think about corrosion control, we think of a hardened building, right? But what if it was just a one of those structures we put up, you use it, okay? You know what? Now our building that supports corrosion control is up and running. You're never skipping a beat, and you may have multiple ones going on at once. So that means you're able to up as far as how many aircraft you're able to support. Another thing that I'm really excited about, right, is helping reduce that logistical footprint, right? Again, I keep throwing that, that logistical footprint, right? But when it comes to being deployed in austere locations, reducing that logistical footprint is so important. Especially when we talk about deploying into these austere locations, you're not always going to have access to airlift. So how can we send a team of maintainers out there to support whatever aircraft they may support, so the big thing is helping reduce our logistical footprint, getting away from, again, those fossil fuels and those noisy generators, and again, if we continue to develop this idea here, and having us and owning and using solar technology to the way it can be used, that's going to be a big win for the Air Force. Another one is when you think about structures. We never think about disposable structures, right? When you think about World War II, right, and when these big, airships were deployed, you would have the whole goal was to support, to protect those bombers, right? So you would build these aircraft, right, that were just disposable aircraft, right? That you can lose them. Guess what? You can build them again. Mm-hmm. What about structures as well? When we think about wartime, right? When we get damaged, sometimes we have to rebuild these buildings. No, right. You get damaged to a certain structure, you throw it away, and you just put another one up. That's quick. That's that's easy to build and build it in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. And lastly, when we think about austere location, we always think here of the world, right? Here on Earth. But with the establishment of the Space Force, now we can start thinking maybe about space, right? It's I don't know if one day we'll establish a base out in the moon, right? Or we might have a space station, but wherever it may be, an austere location. Now you're talking about, can we do it out in space? So I'm thinking here, sci-fi kind of thing of ideas now. But it's I always say when you think in that sort of way, that's kind of where you get these awesome ideas, right? So
yeah. Well, that's all really fascinating stuff. We're just about to the end of our time, but I just want to say, is there anything that we've forgotten to cover, or anything that we've left out?
Yes, sir. So when we think about sustainment, right? We always kind of think as far as being linked to the depots, right? That what they take care of and things of that. But really, sustainment is more than just our Air Force sustainment, right? Centers. We as a service, we must be agile and based on the strategies for keeping out of future conflicts quickly, especially in the budget constrained environment in which we operate. So material solutions in this area, really are to increase performance of airmen, reduce their exposure in the field, and return weapon systems to after missions or after damage, right, is received within operations. So the big thing, right, is we gotta be able to have like quick pop-ups, take down several structures, people and equipment able across the Air Force. So if anything, if I big thing is yes, sustainment is linked to the depot, we have to move beyond that in order to support those aircraft out in the field.
All right. Well, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log. This has been a really fascinating conversation, and appreciate your time.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.